This week's episode of The Owl House, Ida's Requiem, really got the plot of the season going. It's been clear this entire time that Bellows and his people have been very vocal about the Day of Unity without really explaining what it is to anyone in specific detail. But it's this episode where our heroes, indirectly anyway, are finally told how serious a big deal this is. And are even told kind of how to stop it. It's via Ida and her old romantic interest, Rain Whispers, who we know from some other stuff she knew from school. Rain has recently been appointed the head of the Bards Coven, but they also lead a group of rebels who I don't like, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I didn't really take to them much. But the group does bump into Ida as she's trying to help a wild witch keep from being captured. And the two do team up, and it does culminate in Rain telling Ida that Bellows needs all of the Coven leaders for the Day of Unity spell. And if you can take a couple of them out of the equation, then the Day of Unity just can't happen. And it does seem like there's a timetable because of something that happens at the end of the episode. Meaning that you wouldn't have to, kill them or anything. You could just, hold them captive somewhere until the day passes. Unfortunately, as much as I did like this episode, as much as this is a good episode, I do feel like this is the episode that broke the show's streak of absolutely perfect episodes, because I do have some stuff to criticize about this one. Now, the A-plot in this one is that it's Ida reconnecting with this old love interest. And while I didn't take to Rain specifically as fast as I've taken to a lot of the newly introduced characters in the show, I did like them. And I'm very invested in their relationship with Ida. But that's really the problem, because I didn't take to the character as quickly as I've taken to some new characters in the show before. My main concern for this person comes via my concern for Ida and not wanting to see Ida get hurt. Because at the end of the episode, Rain is captured and taken back to Bellows. Their treachery is exposed, and it's implied that they don't even have to consciously cast the spell. Bellows just needs them there physically, and that it's too late to find a new head witch for the Bards Coven. The Day of Unity is upon them already, and it's just easier to take an unwilling participant into the equation. And to be fair, I didn't dislike this character. I just didn't take to them as fast as I have to some other newly introduced characters in the show. I want to be clear, there's the distinction there. This show is usually really good at making me care about new characters very, very fast, on the merits of that character and nothing else. And this episode just didn't do that for me. My main concern for this character comes via my not wanting Ida to get hurt. And that's a testament to how well written and likable Ida is. That says something about the writing in the show. I just think it's noteworthy because it contrasts with Hunter last week, who I took to immediately. I also feel like this A-plot was a little bloated. There was a B-plot in the episode. It seems like there's always going to be something of a B-plot in these episodes, where Luce is racing for Hexside against two other schools. She's not the only one racing for Hexside, I don't think, but she's one of the people racing for Hexside. And she takes King along with her, despite the fact that flying at really fast speeds causes him to get sick, because the winner gets to have an interview with the local news station. And King wants to use that interview to try to get a message out to his dad. But what's interesting about this B-plot is it's definitely there, and it's definitely a plot in the episode, but the entire thing is focused through Ida's perspective. We get a couple of shots that are definitely framed more towards Luce's perspective, but even the resolution of this B-plot is only shown through Ida's perspective as she shows up late to the race because she was off helping the rebels. And it's really cute. The culmination of this B-plot is really cute. The entire time, Ida's only going in so hard on helping the rebels because she's trying to avoid the fact that she thinks King is getting ready to tell her that he's leaving to go be with his dad or go look for his dad or something to that effect. And she has finally started to admit to herself just how much these two kids mean to her. And so that's the kind of thing she does. Ida may deal with a lot of issues head on when it comes to the really difficult emotional stuff, she tends to run away. It's an established aspect of her character. The avoidance of hard emotional conversations is a thing that's been there since the very beginning. But in the end, it does turn out, because they do end up sending out a message. They send out a message via the little cell phone-y things that everybody carries. I don't remember what they called them. And during the message, King reveals that he wasn't planning to leave. He has legally changed his name to King Clawthorne, which was fantastic. And what's really great about it is that when he reveals it to Ida, he's like confrontational about it. He's like hot in your face, you know? And it's because he expects her to be kind of harsh back, because that's just how they interact with each other, right? But she's not. She just tears up because she's so touched. It was a very nice progression of her character. She no longer feels like she needs to put up a tough front with these people. Her bond with them is that much stronger now than it used to be. And I do feel like the misunderstanding here, because he always got to Lee, as in leave or legally change my name, whenever Ida overhears him talking about it with Luce. It's hard to describe. You just need to watch the episode. And I feel like it's a little contrived that Ida kept misunderstanding what he was saying. I guess maybe he rehearsed specifically what he wanted to say to her, so each time he tried to say it, he started with the same mouth sounds, and she always stopped him at the same point. Like, it was supposed to be a funny bit, but it felt a little off to me. I don't know. And considering that that's all that the B-plot needed to do was get us to this really cool emotional point, I really appreciate it. But there wasn't much here. I question why it needed as much focus as it got anyway. Because it's not even like Ida didn't show up in time to see the end of the race, right? She still made it back in time, so there's no conflict there. And I feel like focusing on the B-plot, even as much as they did, took time away from establishing these new characters. The other rebels, whose names I don't even remember after watching this episode 3 times, felt like non-characters to me. And they're not even around anymore. They get taken just like Rain did. And there's so much other stuff happening in this A-plot too. There's culminations of stuff that we already knew, right? The fact that Ida doesn't like Bellows, the fact that Ida's coming to terms with the fact that she's formed this maternal bond with these people, the fact that Ida runs away from really tough emotional situations and needs to learn not to do that. Those are things about Ida that we already know, and it was cool to see them all developed here, but they also retroactively build this relationship between her and Rain, and her association with bard magic. Like, I don't recall us ever seeing her use bard magic before, but in this episode, she does. She has a favorite instrument. She wrote a song for Rain at one point. And we do see, and this was cool, don't get me wrong, we do see that because bard magic works differently, it creates kind of an area of effect around the user, that her curse kind of disseminates out along with that area of effect and can affect things other than herself, corrupting them and causing them to dissolve away. And it's cool. It's a way to use her curse offensively. And I liked that. But we had never gotten any hint that this was a thing up to this point. And it leads to a really cool climax for the A-plot, but I feel like all of that, all of this relationship stuff between her and Rain, the fact that she kind of becomes the group mother to the other young rebels, and even the reveal at the end when Rain tells her that all of the Coven leaders are needed for this Day of Unity spell and that it's way more serious than they've let on up to this point, it bloats this A-plot. Rather than the plot developing stuff that was already there, it adds a bunch of stuff in and tries to develop it all at once. I feel like this episode had less going on in it overall than the last couple of episodes have, and makes less effective use of the time than the last couple episodes have at the same time. It wasn't awful at all. The music in it was really solid, first of all. And the climax of the A-plot, where Rain and Ida play together, because Rain had previously noticed that when Ida plays, the curse affects stuff. And so they think they can use their own music to amplify that and straight up kill 2 of the other Coven leaders who are trying to trap them, preventing the Day of Unity from happening. That was really cool. That was a really cool use of magic that we haven't seen in this show. In fact, while I didn't like how the Bard stuff was applied to Ida in its entirety in this episode, seeing different kinds and different uses for magic in this episode was one of the highlights, because we get to see these other Coven leaders, the leader of, I'm guessing, the Beast Coven and the Abomination Coven for sure, use magic that we've seen in the case of Abominations in ways that we've never seen it used, and use beast magic, which we've hardly ever seen, just in general, because again, we haven't really seen it used much, right? Couple that with the Bard magic and seeing how impressive it was when Rhaen and Ida combined their music together to amplify the curse. That was really neat, but that was more show and not tell. Where some of my issues with this episode are where, like, yeah, they showed us through flashbacks, but it felt very exposition-y. The stuff between Ida and Rhaen, their past relationship, felt like exposition rather than an emotional through line. And I do like that at the end of the day, when Rhaen realizes that Ida does have kids, hears her making excuses why they're not hers, they know her well enough to realize that she's running away from something. Because the issue with this musical spell that they're putting on is that it's going to kill these other 2 guys too, but it'll probably sweep them up in it at the same time. And Rhaen is willing to sacrifice themselves for this, but they don't want Ida to do the same if she has people depending on her. Because honestly, my main problem with Rhaen up to that point is it kind of felt like their rebellion was less serious than it really should have been. Like, the other members of the rebellion, I'm assuming like Rhaen's students or apprentices, are young, right? Which explains why they didn't tell everyone how serious the Day of Unity stuff actually is. They didn't want to disparage these kids, right? But the rebellion almost came off as playful, goofy, when it really shouldn't have. It should have felt like a much more serious thing, I think. And so this moment where Rhaen stays behind and fights off the other 2 Coven leaders long enough for Ida to get away and gets captured, knowing that they'll get captured, really helped me to take to the character more than I would have otherwise. They came off as very heroic in that moment. And so I liked that a lot. I just feel like this episode, as I said earlier, is the first episode this season not to use its time as effectively as it could have. I just feel like some of this stuff could have been worked in elsewhere in previous episodes. Allusions to Ida's past relationship with Rhaen. Allusions to Ida's past relationship with Bard magic. Her being a musician at all. That said, though, I want to reiterate, this is still a good episode. It's just not an amazing episode like the last couple have been. A below average episode of the show is still a really good episode of television, right? And there is one thing in particular that I really liked about this episode and the character of Rhaen in particular, and that is the fact that Rhaen is very clearly non-binary and uses they them pronouns. And this is going to be another one of those things where I need to preempt this by saying it matters because of representation, because representation is a big deal, and this is still a Disney property which reaches a lot of people. That's really cool that one of the main 3 characters' love interests is a non-binary person who uses they them pronouns. Rhaen may not be what I expected them to be. Like, I expected a more serious character. The trailer made them seem like a more serious character than they turned out to be. But this was still a cool character who had a really heroic moment by the end. I did like them. I just don't care about them as much as Ida, Luce, or King yet. Or even like Hunter or Willow or Amity or Gus, right? But I think they'll get there. I don't think this is the last that we've seen of this character, and I do look forward to seeing them again. There's one more scene in this episode that I feel like is worth talking about before I sign off. First of all, when King was sending his message out to his dad, unsure whether or not his dad was going to hear it, I did like that they cut to various other characters watching the message, like Amity and her siblings and Willow and stuff, showing all the other characters that King and Luce have formed bonds with over this time, mostly through Luce, right? King is where he is today because Luce is in his life, and I liked seeing these other characters who she has also touched responding to King in this form that he is now only because Luce is there for him. It really illustrated this broader connection that all of these characters share through this shared relationship. But during all of this, we also cut to a big, burly, king-esque creature who seems to be part of a caravan of some kind, because there's a literal caravan behind him, who looks like he could be King's father. I don't think he's going to turn out to be. I think this is going to turn out to be a red herring. But I do think this could be a member of King's family. And what's interesting is that the caravan behind him has the same eye symbol on it as the portal door, which means that these people, or this one person, I'm assuming there's more than one person in this caravan, but if it is just the one person, they have some connection to all of this, is the point I'm getting at, which is very interesting. And actually kind of brings me back to something I was saying earlier. Some of these things regarding the stuff we were going to learn about Ida in this episode could have been slipped into the backgrounds of other previous episodes, hinted at in other previous episodes. This is just the kind of thing I'm talking about. This little brief reveal of this character here is just the kind of thing I'm talking about, right? That said, what do you guys think of Ida's Requiem if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe. If you haven't, you can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out my channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.